Rise and shine, Mr. Freeman. Rise and shine. Not that I wish to imply you have been sleeping on the job. Let's just say your hour has come again. The right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world. So wake up, Mr. Freeman. Wake up and smell the ashes.
Hey everybody, this is Dan Adams, Editor-in-Chief of IGN PC, and we're here to talk about a little game called Half-Life 2 today. Basically, we'll cut right to the chase. Half-Life 2 is an amazing game. It is probably the best first-person shooter, single-player first-person shooter that I've ever played. It outstraps everything that Half-Life did, and while it doesn't do anything particularly innovative, it does do everything very, very, very well. And there's a lot that's impressive about the technology that's running this game. The much publicized Source engine that we've all been looking forward to seeing for quite a while now. And I've seen in Counter-Strike Source, but haven't seen how well it would run using AI. And that's one of the most impressive things, is that it actually manages to run well, and it does so without compromising, the gameplay. Well, once you actually get into the game, you'll be pretty impressed by what you see right from the get-go. There's a short intro sequence that will actually kind of remind you a little bit of the first Half-Life, but right away you start walking out into City 17, this new crazy little town, and you walk outside and you're greeted with this spectacular view with this gigantic building off in the distance called the Citadel. And, you just look at that and you say, wow, that is nice. I mean, it's hard to say anything bad about what you see in this game. There's a couple of parts that aren't particularly impressive, but, when it comes down to it, this game graphically is leaps and bounds above what we've seen in the past from first-person shooters. Doom 3 definitely did a good job with lighting and making these environments real, but the fact that this whole game is pretty much in the daylight, and there's so many colors involved, and there's a lot of good art going on here, and these guys should definitely be commended, not only from a technological standpoint, but from an artistic standpoint. What's happened here is that the Combine had moved in and set up shop in this City 17, and had the aid of some powerful human collaborators. One scientist in particular that's trying to help the human race progress. We'll just leave it at that. The only complaint that I have, if you can call it a complaint, is that the story ends up asking almost more questions than it answers. But obviously, Valve wanted to keep room for another sequel somewhere down the line, so it's not entirely surprising that this happened. Now, obviously, because there's this new kind of grander plotline than there was in Half-Life, the original Half-Life, there's going to be more enemies, there's going to be new enemies, and there's going to be new kinds of fights and new kinds of weapons, and that definitely holds true. And almost everything that you experience in the game is going to be different, and it's going to be fun. Starting off with the combat, it's actually pretty varied in itself. Half the time you're going to be fighting against Combine, which I think are probably the best fights in the game, because the AI is definitely more intelligent when it comes to fighting against more human-like opponents. They'll come at you in teams. They'll try to flank you. They'll work together. You'll actually hear them shouting and stuff, and it's a pretty fun experience fighting against them, especially when you have allies on your side. Which happens later in the game. And part of the reason the combat is so fun, no matter who you're fighting, are the weapons. And the weapons are well designed. You'll get your basic kind of pistol weapons and submachine guns that you're used to in probably any game. But then you get more exotic weapons up to the gravity gun. And all of these weapons feel great. They sound good. They feel like they have the right kickback. They're accurate. You feel like you really are part of this world because the guns are so nice, and you're set in there and you feel good about it. And probably my favorite weapon out of all of them is the gravity gun, which I mentioned just a second ago. This thing just creates such a different feel for Half-Life 2 than any other first-person shooter out there, and that's because Valve uses physics in a way that just hasn't been done before. It uses it for problem solving, and it uses it for combat, and to change the environment on you when you're not really expecting it, and create a more dynamic battlefield. For instance, the gravity gun can actually pick up or push things around depending on whether you're using alternate fire or regular fire. And if you do pick something up, you draw it to you, and you're using the gun. And when you hit the alternate fire, it actually spews it out at a very high speed. So you can hit creatures with it. You know, you can pick things up and use it as a shield. Like there will be metal objects around. You can use it as a shield. If enemy is hiding behind a car, you can actually hit the car with the burst that would shoot something out, and the car will actually flip over and fall on the enemies. I mean, there's just tons of different ways that you can use this. Along with the physics being used in combat, it also used in some of the slower parts of the game, like the puzzle solving elements. So you'll actually have to pick stuff up and move stuff around, and solve problems using your brain and figuring out how this might, something might be changed in the environment to help you out in a certain way. And as I said before, regardless of whether you're using physics or just shooting, there's a lot of variety of gameplay here. There's driving parts of the game. There's plenty of team-based parts of the game. There's combat versus aerial type of vehicles. There's combat versus ground vehicles. There's aliens. There's defend type missions. There's attack type missions. And there's all kinds of things to look forward to in this game, and it just keeps kind of ramping up as you go through the game. So the pace is absolutely fantastic. Finally, it should be noted that Half-Life 2 does not come with a multiplayer version of itself, meaning that you don't get a version in the box that has Gordon or any of the scientists that you can run around and shoot each other in a deathmatch or any kind of team-based modes. So yeah, I mean, Half-Life 2 is a fantastic single-player game. If you're a fan of first-person shooters, this is a must-buy. If you're a fan of Half-Life, this is obviously a must-buy. And if you're looking for a way to get into first-person shooters and have never really seen the appeal of them, this is probably a good way to start out. It gets you right in there. It shows you how good first person can actually be in telling a story, and you should find yourself embroiled in an amazing game that just keeps you glued to the edge of your seat for the entire duration. For now, get out, play it, have a good time, and hopefully we'll be seeing some sort of expansion or a sequel sometime soon, so we can continue this story that's definitely gotten interesting.
The man I saw, I'm all but certain it was Gordon Freeman.